Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice of you to join me on this afternoon. I hope I'll be able to speak well. We just got off the plane last night, so I'm just slightly jet-lagged, but it's wonderful to be here. It's, I think, my third time visiting Seoul, and it's always a pleasure. Korea is such a musical country. I'd like to thank Mr. Dyson for his kind words, and Professor Kim. Of course, this is ancient history. I'm much older now than I was when I was at the New York Philharmonic. I think I was only 38 years old when I started that interesting moment in my life. So, a question I was asked 10 years ago, which I'm never asked today, is why did you leave the New York Philharmonic when you run? It just was, why would that happen? That's not a complicated question. Of course, everybody knows we Americans have a little bit of a pioneer spirit in us. We always wish to head on to the next challenge, and the West holds an amazing adventure for us. But actually, the adventure for me had to do with something else. It had to do with a call one day from Esa-Pekka Salonen and Frank Gehry, the architect, who had a dream about building the most incredible new concert hall. And they're asking me to risk what I had. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up in New York, and to join them. And to do something that I have had a dream about since I'm in my 20s. That is to help to create truly an orchestra of the 21st century. Now, the building of Walt Disney Concert Hall is almost a miracle. It was an odyssey. From when it was first a thought to when you saw the video of the very first rehearsal, and I'll come back and talk to you about that, it took 17 years. I was only there for the final 3 before we opened it, but we spent a lot of time to make sure to raise the money. And I'm going to talk about that later because it almost didn't happen. Let me just correct something which maybe I misunderstood before. There was never a problem with the acoustics of the hall, which were designed by Yasuhisa Toyota, who also designed Suntory Hall and many others. From the moment the hall opened, it was internationally acclaimed for not only its great beauty, but the absolutely remarkable clarity and beauty of the sound within, and what we describe as a completely visceral concert-going experience. I'll come back and talk more, but I think maybe say that. In addition to having fantastic acoustics and beauty, it's very actually amusing, as it is the most famous hall now in the United States because it is in every car ad on TV. I was watching the movie Get Smart on the plane yesterday. The last half an hour is filmed in Walt Disney Hall, so it has become a very iconic structure for our entire nation. Now, let me give you a little background about the Los Angeles Philharmonic. It's a young orchestra. It's only about 100 years old, but it already has a distinguished history with music directors such as Klemperer, von Beinum, Mehta, Giulini, Esa-Pekka Salonen, and our incoming music director, Gustavo Dudamel. And it's had a wonderful reputation, but what we dream about now is the twin goals of innovation and excellence, and how, as we said before, we can really invent what the orchestra of the 21st century can be. A word about our institutional structure. We have 2 homes, the Walt Disney Concert Hall, which seats just over 2,000 people. And of course we have another absolutely iconic venue, very well known to not just Americans, but people all over the world from movies, the Hollywood Bowl. We have the largest budget of any musical organization in the United States except the Metropolitan Opera. Our budget is $95 million. We earn approximately 56% of that, which is high for an American orchestra. And then the rest is made up through 2 major areas, of course, ticket sales. And at Walt Disney Concert Hall, we run at an average of 92% of sales. And then at the Hollywood Bowl, where, depending on the kind of concert, we can have anywhere from 18,000 to 6,000 or 7,000 people. We have an endowment, which which is today much smaller than it was when I left Los Angeles yesterday. But we've raised close to $200 million for the endowment for the orchestra. So that's sort of a financial outline. We have a board of directors who are volunteers, and their job is to do two things: to give us money, and to be on the board, you must donate at least $50,000 a year. And the second part is that they set our policy. They don't run the organization, but they set our major policies. 60 people on our board. We have a staff, which has 140 people on it, and that 140 people includes operations of both halls. And we have an orchestra of 106 people, which is under a permanent contract to us for 52 weeks a year, and we engage in labor negotiations with them every 3 and 4 years. We actually have a second orchestra, the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, and that is because we give so many concerts during the summer, we need to find a way to give some extra time off to the members of the Los Angeles Philharmonic so we don't destroy them. And before I tell you the story of Walt Disney Concert Hall, I should say that we are continuing to be very successful today. We have had balanced budgets for the past 6 years. We have raised, as I said, close to $200 million in endowment. We are running at 92% of capacity in our winter season. And in the United States of America, I can only tell you about an article in the New York Times last year, which said, the musical force of America has moved to Los Angeles, and the pioneering ways of Esa-Pekka Salonen and the Los Angeles Philharmonic have set the standard that American orchestras should aspire to. So let's go to the film that you showed, because it was quite interesting. That is a film of the very, very first time the orchestra ever played a note of music in Walt Disney Concert Hall. The community had given $274 million to build the hall. I felt, and Esa-Pekka Salonen felt, it was absolutely essential, although scary, that we would invite them and they would be part of our family for the very first rehearsal. And as I had forgotten that I had said what a crazy idea it was, but now I see it's immortalized on the screen. But it was a crazy idea, but a good one. And the gentlemen you saw in suits and ties, they were not musicians. Those were some of the most famous citizens of Los Angeles. Eli Broad, Mayor Richard Riordan. It was a who's who of civic pride. Each one of these people sometimes had given even millions of dollars for the hall. So Frank Fury, when he finished planning the hall and built it, said to me and to Esa-Pekka, Deborah, Esa-Pekka, I built a beautiful hall, but now you must put the heart in it, because without music, there is no heart. And that was our job. But there was another job at the same time, and that was to deal with the fact that the Los Angeles Philharmonic, although it was a great orchestra, had lost its importance in the community and had terrible financial problems. So we took this challenge or opportunity, it depends how you see it, we took it as an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to reimagine. What we attempted to do was to reframe not only the orchestra, but all the music that we presented. So we introduced a much greater spectrum of music than we had presented before, a jazz series, a world music series, very extensive education series, a Baroque series, recital series, all sorts of events like that, to truly welcome a larger group of people into Walt Disney Concert Hall. But we never, never lose sight of the fact that the jewel in our crown is the Los Angeles Philharmonic and classical music. So to give you an example of how we opened Walt Disney Concert Hall, there was a gala, which you may have seen on TV here. It was carried around the world. Big gala concert, movie stars, people came from all over. But the week before, we did something no orchestra had done, opening a hall. We presented a community festival for 1 week where 18,000 people were welcomed to free concerts in Walt Disney Concert Hall. Concerts for children, concerts for senior citizens, a concert for the men and women who built the hall. We called the festival, and this is a sort of play, it's a joke in English, and you'll help me explain this. We called the festival Fill the House. Fill, P-H-I-L, as in Philharmonic. And it did fill the house, and I knew how important it was one morning when I was walking to work, and there was a young Latino couple, and they were having their wedding picture taken in front of Walt Disney Concert Hall. And I talked to them, and they said their dream was to be able to go inside. And you knew that it meant something special for our community. Now, we today are well known as the most adventurous programming orchestra in the United States. What are some of the things that create that adventure? Special festivals that we do every year. A minimalist jukebox, concrete frequency, we give them names. Our Tristan project, which we did with Bill Viola. We did the entire opera of Tristan with a video by the international videographer, Bill Viola. I think an important way of putting this is that we see contemporary music, music of today, as important as music of the past. And so we see composers as heroes. And we present them as such, and we call them composer heroes, and there are many that we are very closely involved with. John Adams would be somebody that you might know. Thomas Adès, most brilliant young, I think, British composer, the heir to Benjamin Britten. Our own Esa-Pekka Salonen. But you would be surprised, I think, if you came to Los Angeles to see the amount of contemporary music that is on our programs and that people are coming to hear. So it's a very important part of our trademark. So we take these words of excellence and innovation, and we don't just say them, we live by them. And in other ways, in addition to music, because it is an entire institution, we have made extensive use of the internet. We were one of the first orchestras to be so active selling tickets on the internet. A recent innovation, we have a lecture before every concert, but I think you all know there's terrible traffic in Los Angeles. You might be stuck driving for an hour to get to the concert. And we have podcasts, so you can listen to the lecture in your car. There are many examples of things like this, because you sell tickets very, very differently in 2008 than you did just in 1999 or 2000. And finally, before, I hope you have some questions, and finally, if I have to say what I think we are about, most importantly, we are about the future. We are about the future. And that is why, next year, when Esa-Pekka Salonen leaves, our new music director, who has been appointed, is Gustavo Dudamel. He is the single most remarkable talent on the podium I have ever seen. The Germans have a special word for it, and I won't use the German word, but you know, I love how the Germans make one word for something, Schadenfreude. But so once in 100-year talent, and that's the description that they give to Dudamel. I'll say a few words about what he's going to do, but I'll let you go now. Gustavo has an electricity with the orchestra and with audiences throughout Los Angeles and throughout the world. He comes to a state where 51% of the people speak Spanish, not English. An interesting point. And one of the major programs we will undertake with Gustavo, and we have already launched it, is an education program that is based on this amazing Venezuelan El Sistema. And we have recreated it in Los Angeles, but differently, because it has to work in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is not Caracas. And we are so excited about this work already, forming youth orchestras all over greater Los Angeles in the most poor areas. And so as we end the first decade of the 21st century, I find myself every day when I walk into Walt Disney Concert Hall, my heart beats a little faster. And our mission seems clear, but it also seems that people are listening to it. And I'm just so delighted to be here with the orchestra and with Esa-Pekka Salonen in Seoul, so that you will have a chance to hear this great orchestra, this very innovative institution. And I'm very glad, after she translates this, to answer any questions. What do I expect? What special gift do I expect Gustavo Dudamel to bring, not only to Los Angeles, but to the music world? Gustavo Dudamel inspires a level of excitement and emotional commitment from listeners and musicians in the orchestra that I have not seen in my entire career. There was some aspect of it with Leonard Bernstein, but it goes to another place with Gustavo. And so you see this interesting dichotomy in that you have somebody who looks like and acts like a rock star on the stage, but is the most serious musician and is making the most serious music. So that is the first part of what the success is about. Because people see this, they hear this, they understand it. The second part flows from that. Can he start to inspire two groups of younger people who have turned away potentially from classical music, although we have many young people in our audience now at Walt Disney Concert Hall. And can he welcome in larger segments of our very diverse population in Los Angeles? Yes, Latinos, but Los Angeles has something like 125 different nationalities. It's a remarkable melting pot, and I see him as an internationalist. I see his ability to cut across those lines, and that's what I think he will